Hi everyone, my name is Marlaina, and for my final presentation, I will be talking to you about the importance of emergency savings plans. We'll start off with some of the basics about emergency savings plans. I'll discuss features of employer-sponsored emergency savings plans, explore similarities between emergency savings plans and retirement plans, and we'll also discuss the importance of an emergency savings plan during a pandemic or an emergency such as the coronavirus crisis that's happening right now. It may not surprise you that 40% of Americans cannot afford a $400 emergency. Imagine if your car broke down and needed a $400 repair. Would you be able to pay that today? As of 2017, 24% of households earning more than $100,000 per year say that they could not cover a $400 expense, or they would need to take out a loan, sell an asset, or need other assistance. It is true that some Americans can't afford a small emergency because they just don't bring in enough income. However, why do the Americans that make over six figures have the same difficulty? Why do half of Americans live paycheck to paycheck? This does not seem to be a matter of how much income they're bringing in, but how much or how little they're saving. An employer-sponsored emergency savings plan will encourage employees to contribute a portion of their income to a rainy day fund that they can access whenever an emergency arises. Offering this type of plan will reduce the need for employees to prematurely withdraw from their 401k and incur harsh penalties. Just to mention, as a side note, emergency savings plans don't have to be sponsored by employers in order to be effective. A simple savings account can be just as useful for Americans. For the purpose of this presentation, we will explore the benefits of an employer-sponsored plan, but just know that anyone can start a rainy day fund on their own. Loans, and especially payday loans, have interest rates that can make the loan much more expensive than expected. Of course, when people take out loans in good faith, their objective is to pay it off as quickly as possible with as little interest paid as possible. However, this may not always work out like intended. Retirement plans like IRAs, 401ks, 457s, 403bs, they all have one main objective, and that is to save for retirement. Taking withdrawals from a retirement plan may be an option if someone has a hardship reason, but not only are these withdrawals taxable, but they also impose a 10% early withdrawal penalty if that participant is under retirement age. Loans and withdrawals from retirement plans may be suitable last resort choices, but there must be a better option, and I believe this is where emergency savings plans come into play. The COVID-19 pandemic has taught us many things, one of them being that emergencies can pop up anytime with little warning. This is why it is vital to have an emergency savings plan. We all have experienced emergencies like car troubles, job loss, economic turndown, and atypical expenses that we don't usually prepare for. And like death and taxes, rainy day funds are unavoidable. Like I stated previously, anyone can kickstart their emergency savings plan with a simple savings account, but employer-sponsored emergency savings plans will have additional benefits that encourage employees to enroll. Many retirement plans will match employee contributions up to a certain dollar amount or percentage, like $1,000 per year or 6%. And effective employee-sponsored emergency savings plans will allow employers to match as well. Emergency savings plans must allow employees to withdraw whenever they experience an emergency, and the key is they define the emergency. This money should be allocated in funds that are low risk, like cash or money market accounts, and they must be available to be withdrawn at any time with short processing times. Retirement plans have the ability to be invested in similar allocations, but they are only liquid when the participant is over the retirement age. Emergency savings plans need to be liquid at all times. Taxation on withdrawals should depend on what type of account the emergency savings plan is considered. If the account is considered pre-tax and the contributions are going in before they're taxed, they will grow tax deferred, but they would need to be taxed upon withdrawal. If the contributions are made on an after-tax basis, they will also grow tax deferred, but the earnings would be taxable upon withdrawal unless the account is over 5 years old and the employee is over 59 and a half. Unless the IRS creates new tax laws around emergency savings plans, they would need to follow the tax regulations of a 401k. Hopefully in the future, we will see IRS creating new standards similar to HSAs, health savings accounts that are triple tax-free. They allow pre-tax contributions to grow tax-deferred, and they are not taxable at the time of withdrawal. This scenario would be ideal for emergency savings plans. Another item to consider is portability. When an employee switches jobs, they have the ability to roll over their retirement plans to their new employer so they can keep contributing. Emergency savings plans would need to have this capability as well, as long as the new employer offers emergencies savings plans too. And above all else, all employer-sponsored plans must comply with the IRS rules and regulations. The purpose of an emergency savings plan is to be available when you need it, meaning that funds should be in a low-risk investment and extremely liquid. Someone who needs to access this money needs to access it today. Retirement accounts have long-term goals, and if you're a young investor, your money should be invested in something risky. After all, you aren't touching this money for many, many years, and you don't want to access this money until it has grown. While it may be attractive to keep all of your funds under one roof, having separate accounts enforces the strategy that money in this account is for this purpose, and money in that account is for that purpose. A separate rainy day funds savings account will protect money saved for retirement. If rainy day money is housed with retirement money, there may be a temptation to withdraw more than necessary since there is no boundary for which is what is for a rainy day and what is for retirement. Separate accounts with separate functions mitigate this risk. This United States map shows the number of confirmed coronavirus cases in current time. This was actually just updated a few hours ago on May 1st at 1:32 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So it is safe to say that the current coronavirus pandemic is the most tragic emergency that any of us have seen in our lifetimes. This is a perfect example of why everyone needs an emergency savings plan. People need money for food, for housing, for clothing, for necessities, and a pandemic does not change that at all. In fact, some people need more money during a crisis than usual. The large umbrella emergency, which is the pandemic, causes smaller emergencies like job loss. States started closing and families were encouraged to quarantine around March 12th, but economic impact payments did not start to flow until about a month later. If you were unable to work during this time, you will agree with me that having an emergency savings plan during those 4 long weeks would have been life-changing. And here is a larger version of that map in case you missed it. Now let's discuss the spike in unemployment since the start of the coronavirus pandemic. This graph was published by NPR on April 23rd, 2020. Before 2020, the scale of the y-axis of the graph should have only gone up to 1 million. You can see in 2009, 665,000 unemployment claims were filed towards the tail end of the recession, which was shaded in gray on the graph. In 2012, 446,000 claims were filed. At the time, these were big numbers, but little did we know. A huge spike started in 2020, all the way up to 6,867,000 unemployment claims at the end of March. And some scientists are predicting that, like other pandemics, a second wave is in our future. And if this is true, we will see another huge spike in the graph. Thank you so much for sticking along with me during this presentation. I hope that I have encouraged you to enroll in your employer's emergency savings plan or to start your own. A simple savings account will do. Start saving up for that $400 emergency because you know it's coming. Like death and taxes, like I've been saying, it's unavoidable and those emergencies will happen. If you can, keep growing your emergency savings plan to 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. Imagine if you had that when this pandemic started. You would have been much better off. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me. I hope you have a great rest of your day and stay safe.